Welcome to another in our series of Kehillat Israel podcasts. This is a recording of Rabbi Amy Bernstein's weekly Friday morning Torah study.
There are special Torah readings for holidays. We interrupt the regular reading, our cycle of reading, every holiday. So a holiday that has 8 days or 7 days, there's always a Shabbat in there. So there is a special Torah reading for Yom Tov, right? So if it's the holiday itself, the first day of Passover, the last day of Passover, first day of Sukkot, last day of Sukkot, when it's Yom Tov, there's a specific Torah reading. There's another reading when it's Chol Hamoed. What is Chol Hamoed? Means it's the holiday, but it's not Yom Tov. If Shabbat were the last day of Passover, we would be on a different reading. Chol Hamoed. So Chol is the opposite of Yom Tov. Yeah? So either it's Yom Tov or it's Chol. Chol is like regular. What's Moed? It's an appointed time. So Chol Hamoed. It's Chol. It's not Yom Tov, but it is a special time.
So appointed
it's Pesach.
Regular special time.
A regular day that's part of a special time. Yes. So we have Chol Hamoed on Sukkot, on Pesach, on those things that are. Hanukkah has no Yom Tov. So,
no special reading?
No, Maccabees.
Oh,
okay. Maccabees is read.
It's an additional reading.
It's an additional reading. Correct. But you wouldn't change your Shabbos reading for Hanukkah. So the reading for Chol Hamoed Pesach is Exodus 33, verse 12. And again, if it were the first day of Pesach, that's a different Torah reading. Right? So that we're clear. Because it's Yom Tov. Yom Tov has the holiday Yom Tov has its own Torah readings because you have a service. Right? If it's Thursday and it's the first day of Passover, there's a service, most places, and a Torah reading. There's a Torah service as part of Yom Tov. We see this reading a lot. So this is a very familiar piece of Torah for us. One thing to ask as we read through it is, why Chol Hamoed Pesach? Right? Why assign this to Chol Hamoed Pesach? That's one of the questions we always should be asking. If it's interrupting the regular cycle of reading, which we are, because what book are we in right now? Shmini. Leviticus. We should be in Tzav, or between Tzav and Shmini, right? So we're in Leviticus. We're interrupting that cycle and putting this special reading in for Chol Hamoed Pesach, and so always the question should be, why did the rabbis pick this one? Shouldn't we be reading something about the splitting of the sea, or right? Which we do read on Pesach. We read first day of Pesach about, right, part of the Exodus narrative, and the seventh day of Passover, the last day of Passover. If we had a service here and a Torah service here, we would be reading the scene at the sea, where the sea parts and the people go through. That's what we read on the seventh day of Passover. So those make sense. Why this here? All right. 33:12.
Moses said to the Lord, "See, you say to me, lead this people forward, but you have not made known to me whom you will send with me. Further you said, I've singled you out by name, and you have indeed gained my favor. Now if I have truly gained your favor, pray let me know your ways, that I may know you and continue in your favor. Consider too that this nation is your people." And he said, "I will go in the lead and will lighten your burden." And he said to him, "Unless you go in the lead, do not make us leave this place. For how shall it be known that your people have gained your favor unless you go with us, so that we may be distinguished, your people and I, from every people on the face of the earth?"
All right, what's going on here? Where are we? What's happened? What's been going on? We're still in Egypt. We are not at this point in Egypt. We're not.
Was Moses at the burning bush?
Nope. Moses is commissioned at the burning bush. That's where he's hired.
But he's still questioning why me?
No. He's not questioning why me now. We're already out of Egypt. Moshe's done his job. Well, part of his job. So what's happened just before this is the golden calf. Right? The golden calf. What is Moses doing when the golden calf happens? On the mountain. He comes down, sees what's happening, takes the agreement between God and Israel and tears it up because the people have already abrogated the agreement. So Moshe tears up the marriage contract. Then what happens?
Then he goes back.
He's going to wind up going back. How? Why?
He makes them drink the.
He makes the people
blood,
drink
blood.
the calf.
Right.
There's a plague. It's not pretty.
Well, wait. You said they've already abrogated the agreement. What was the agreement? I thought the agreement was when he was bringing down the Ten Commandments and they were agreeing to that. So what had they agreed to before? That if they came out of Egypt, they would follow God?
Na'aseh v'nishma. Remember, God speaks and the people say, whatever God says, we will do. You go handle the details. We can't deal. They flip out. Right?
And when did they say that?
They said that a few pages ago.
At what point in the journey? Right after?
Sinai.
They were at Sinai.
They come to Sinai. God says, keep yourselves pure, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to come down on the mountain. Don't touch the mountain, right? Because you'll get zapped. Revelation, right? So then Moshe, God starts to speak. God reveals God's self to the people, and they freak out. And they can't handle it. And they say, Moshe, you go deal with the details. We're gonna stay down here. So Moshe goes up. Moshe gets the tablets, comes down. They have already abrogated the agreement. He smashes them. Then what happens?
Then there's a plague.
And
then God said, I'm reading the text. God says to Moses, set out from here and lead the people.
Before that,
Before the plague.
God calls Moshe again.
Oh, right.
Right? Moshe intervenes for the people. God has had it with this people. Moshe intervenes. Moshe gets them forgiven. And God says, carve 2 tablets like the other ones and bring them up here to me. And God forgives the people and God makes the second covenant. Yes? Moshe has to carve this set, not God. God carved the first set. Moshe carves this set, brings it up, and God then gives Moshe again, right, the words of the agreement, the terms of the agreement that Moshe then brings down to the people.
Does he carve it before he goes up or just fashion the tablets?
Who knows? When he comes down with that second set, what day is that, according to tradition? Yom Kippur.
Oh.
According to tradition, that is Yom Kippur. The second set of tablets comes down Yom Kippur. So that is the agreement that is still in place today. Not the first set, right? The second set.
Is it the same agreement?
Yes.
With the Ten Commandments?
Yes. The meaning for me is that it's after the shattering, it's after the betrayal that the agreement stands. Right? It's not the first idealistic relationship that lasts. It's the one after God has been seriously hurt and betrayed by the people.
And also, Moses writes it the second time. It's just like something you agree to do when somebody else gives it to you. Okay, but when your blood is in it, when you're saying, I'm writing this, I'm going to do it, it feels more real.
And there's lots of commentary about why does God have Moshe carve the second set, right? And it's very much usually along those lines that the first set, God just gave, and it's like, so when you're given a car, whatever, but when you have to work for it, there's a different sense of, I have an investment here, right? I have skin
And it's also
in the
an
game.
acknowledgement that sometimes you fail the first time, and you do it again.
Well, it's paradigmatic for
Yes,
us
it
as a
is.
people that you fail the first time. I mean, it's just That's paradigmatic here. I mean, it doesn't get more, this being the example of what relationships look like. This is it. And absolutely, it's that the first time we fail.
Do we know that the first tablets that were broken had the same 10 commandments? I'm kind of thinking maybe God felt, I better say, I am the Lord thy God, the second time.
Because they were unclear the first time. We're not told it's exactly the same words, but we were told already what the first set was.
Which was the same.
Is this a second chance message?
This is definitely a second chance message.
After you've atoned, which is for Yom Kippur, he's gone and really atoned for his people, and then he gets the...
Absolutely.
The connection between the giving of the tablets and Yom Kippur is particularly mysterious and interesting, because here are rules seriously to be obeyed under the circumstances, because we were so terrible before. And there's a depth of stuff that I can't fathom.
I gave a whole sermon on it, one Kol Nidre, because I think it's one of the most powerful things that we have. That the message is that we are forgiven and we get to start again. And it's that relationship that has remained intact for millennia, right? Not the idealistic first one, right? God sees who we are and makes a covenant with us anyway. And I think that message on Yom Kippur is incredibly powerful, right? That it's only
not too late.
After we have failed, it's only after we have behaved badly that we enter a real relationship that lasts. And what a powerful teaching that is about our capacity to be forgiven and our capacity to change and our capacity to hope even and believe in someone even and love them even after they've hurt us terribly.
Did I remember correctly? I thought God also said, I'm not going with you anymore. Before the second set of tablets, you're like on your own, and the people sort of freaked out about that.
Yeah, so Moses makes everything okay.
Oh, he gets God to back off on that one?
Correct.
Okay.
Right before this, it has
But-
God saying to Moses, "Tell
But
the
it's not
people."
over, right? Because you're gonna see Moses' anxiety here.
Absolutely.
Right.
That was my point. I thought the message, there was more than the message of, well, you put some energy into the second set of tablets. It's, oh, by the way, I'm sort of changing my outlook and behavior too from here on out.
What Moshe gets is an assurance that God's malach is going to go with the people. Right? Moshe's gotten that recently. Now we're going to see Moshe's still nervous, right, about how committed God is to this people, with good reason, right? It was pretty bad. God says, get out of my way. Get out of my way, because I'm done with them. And I'm going to make a great nation out of you, or I'm going to start over. I'm starting this project over with you. Right? So it was pretty intense. And Moshe rejects that offer, right? And says, if you're going to kill them, you got to kill me. And but still he's a little anxious.
Is this also the story about forgiveness in the sense that God needed Moses to do this as opposed to God doing it? Moses had to apologize. Is this an apology? The act of bringing up, him carving the tablets and bringing them up to God. Is he apologizing to God?
Moshe apologizes right away. Forgive them, right there. Moshe didn't do anything wrong, so he can't apologize, right?
He's apologizing.
He always. It's interesting. It's not, I'm sorry, like they're sorry. It's, you are merciful and you are just. And what will the Egyptians say if you schmeiss them in the desert? Your reputation is going to be, right. Moshe doesn't say the people deserve anything. Moshe uses all kinds of arguments to talk God out of destroying the people. But it's interesting that it's not, they're young, they don't know what they're doing, right? It's not that they deserve it, right? Moshe comes up with all these other arguments that your reputation is going to be ruined. The Egyptians are going to say you brought him out there just to kill him. Is that what you want people to say about you? Right? So it's interesting that it isn't Dafka. They're so sorry.
Well, this generation is punished because they never get to Israel.
But that's not yet.
I know, but...
Because they're going to screw up again. It's not this one. They're forgiven for the calf. And many people say that the Mishkan is all related to the calf. You want to build something? Build something, right? God gets it that they need a visible symbol. They're human and they're weak and they need something. And so God gives them all these instructions after the calf of something to build that is going to be appropriate and proper, right? For how to have God visibly, symbolically in their midst. So it seems they really are forgiven for this. They're going to screw up again. And that's when God says, you know what? They're never going to get it. These people are never going to get it. They're not the ones who can take on the responsibility of building this new enterprise, and it's going to have to be their children, because they're just slaves that can't get it together.
May we add paradigmatic and smish to our new vocabulary?
Shmice, yes.
Shmice, okay.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so that's what's been happening. So then everything is supposedly better and fixed, and then God says, all right, it's time to... I mean, they're not supposed to stay in the desert, where they haven't screwed up yet, right? What is supposed to happen from Sinai? They're supposed to go like a 4-day journey and conquer the promised land. That's where we're at right now, right? So that second set of tablets comes down. It's time to go. They got Torah. They got their instructions. Now I'm going to take you into the land where you're going to execute that, where you're going to make it so, as they would say on Star Trek, right? So make it so. And that's where we are right now. Yes?
Very simple question. You said Torah. So this means teachings?
Yes.
So
Instruction.
it has two meanings. One is the Torah here, which are the Ten Commandments, the teaching. And then is the Torah, the Bible.
Correct.
Okay.
According to tradition, Moshe received the entire Torah at Sinai. That, according to tradition, right? So,
it's different than people writing it several years later.
So that's why we always talk about mythic history and lived history, right? That they are parallel, but they're not the same. Obviously, the Torah is written over a 1,000-year span. According to tradition, Moshe got it all, including the oral Torah at Sinai, including the Talmud and all of those.
And very strong.
Right? Right? It's a lot to write on clay, right? It's not easy to carry, exactly. You need a big briefcase. All right. So that's what's just happened. That was a very long introduction to this. So Moshe says, all right, you've told me, lead this people forward, but you've not made known to me whom you will send with me. You have said, Moshe's talking to God, you told me, quote, I have singled you out by name, and you have indeed gained my favor, end quote. Now, if that's true, if I've truly gained your favor, pray let me know your ways, that I may know you and continue in your favor. Consider, too, that this nation is your people. And God says, I will go in the lead and I will lighten your burden. All right? I'm going with you. I'm going to lead. It's okay. I got your back. And what does Moshe say? Thank you so much. Oh, gracious and wonderful God. No. Because this is a Jewish guy. What did he say? Unless you go in the lead, do not make us leave this place.
God just said God was going.
God said, I'm going. And Moshe says, see that you do. See that you do. Unless you go in the lead, don't make us leave this place. For how will it be known that your people have gained your favor unless you go with us? So that we may be distinguished, your people and I, from every people on the face of the earth. Does God say, okay, now you're trying my patience? No. Now what does God say, Bert?
And the Lord said to Moses, I will also do this thing that you have asked, for you have truly gained my favor, and I have singled you out by name. He said, Moses, I guess, oh, let me behold your presence. And he answered, I will make my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim before you the name Lord, and the grace that I grant, and the compassion that I show. But, he said, you cannot see my face, because man may not see me and live. And the Lord said, see, there is a place near me. Station yourself on the rock, and as my presence passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock and shield you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take my hand away, and you will see my back, but my face must not be seen.
So I apologize. This is happening between the tablets. This is happening before the second set. This is after the first set, and this he's going to get the instructions in a minute to do the second set. I apologize. So Moshe says, clearly Moshe's anxious still. Yes? That God is not fully committed to this, people. It's, right? It was a pretty big mess. So Moshe clearly is still anxious that God is not fully on board. And pushes, right? So pushes and says, right, you better go with us, or how else, and all that stuff. And God says, I will also do this thing that you have asked, right? God gets it. Okay, I get it. You're anxious. For you truly have gained my favor, and I have singled you out by name. Okay, we have a special relationship. It's okay.
Is this, excuse me, in the Hebrew, is this you, Moses, or you plural? How is the you meant?
Singular.
So you.
Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, and God says to Moshe, Gam et hadavar hazeh asher dibarta e'eseh. And this thing, even this thing that you have said, I will do. Ki matzata chen be'enai, for you have found favor in my sight.
So just Moses.
Yeah, masculine singular. Ve'adacha b'shem, and I. It doesn't say singled out, and I know you by name. This is the word for to know, like knowing someone biblically, right? So it's a very intimate term. I don't know why they translate it like this, particularly here. I know you by name. So it's a much more intimate thing than what our English
kind of I know who you
tells. I know who you are. I know you. Vayomer, and Moshe answers, Hareini na et kavodecha. Let me behold your kavod. And what does God say? I will avir kol tuvi al panecha. I will cause to pass all of my goodness al panecha, on your face. By your face. V'karati v'shem Adonai, and I will proclaim the name Yud He Vav He lefanecha, before you. V'chanoti et asher achon. Again, this is very difficult Hebrew to really translate, and I gracify that which I gracify. V'richamti et asher arachem, and I mercify that which I mercify. What does that mean?
I will grant. I'm the power, giving mercy and grace.
So clearly something about grace and something about
mercy,
compassion, mercy. Right? We've seen this word before, rachamim. Here it's a verb, right? Mercify. And it's from rechem. It's from womb. The root of rachamim is rechem, womb. Tell me why.
Because the womb takes care of a totally helpless newly
Yes.
And gives life.
Why is it the root for mercy? Compassion.
Taking care of.
Well, to tend and to take care of is one thing. What's mercy about?
It's unearned.
It is unearned. Our children do not deserve our forgiveness or our love or our attention a lot of the time.
But they get it anyway.
They get it anyway because we have this quality of a parent, which means I'm not going to kill you even though you deserve it right now. Right? I'm not. Strict justice would have me punish you pretty severely for what you just did or how you just spoke to me or whatever. But I have this quality of rachamim that prevents me from carrying out strict justice. Right? Because justice means what's fair, what you earned. Your actions have consequences. And if you do this, what happens to you is just. It's fair. Children would not survive. Adolescents, for sure, if parents did not have the quality of rachamim, of compassion, of mercy. I don't like any of those words, actually, for this as a translation, right? English just does not come anywhere near it. It's the feeling you have for the issue of your womb that saves them from you and from your justice. Because the world has to have rachamim, right? It has to. There's a wonderful midrash about God creates a world out of strict justice, out of din, and it comes apart. It just kind of implodes because it's so hard and edged that it can't survive. And then God creates a world completely out of rachamim, and it's like all gooey and right soft, and it doesn't make it either. That we have to have both elements, din and rachamim, strict justice, rules, consequences, and rachamim and compassion. So clearly,
there's an English word for it.
There is not. There is not an English word for it. I don't think. But it is very clear to me, which is why Pam said it, because it is very clear to me that it's about you can't earn it. Right? Our children can't earn our rachamim. It's given. It's a gift that you can call it. We're hardwired that way, whatever. But it just is. They don't do something to earn that treatment, that regard from us.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth like the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. Blessed him that give and him that receive. I can't believe that Shakespeare must have been Jewish.
Shakespeare knew these texts. And it's a universal human truth. It's a universal. Any single culture in the whole wide world knows that what you feel for your children, your grandchildren, your puppy, whatever, it's not earnable. And it is one of the most powerful things we feel, rachamim. It's one of the most powerful things we can experience. And it changes everything about us. When we are angry, when we are hurt, when we are all those things, when we move to a place of compassion, it changes everything for us. The one who gives it and the one who receives it. It is good all the way around. It's good for everybody. It seems that God is saying something to Moshe here about what God's essence is. Moshe's asking, let me see your kavod. Let me see your presence, your glory. And God answers with this twisted business of, I will cause all my goodness to pass before you, and I will proclaim the name Yud He Vav He, and I will gracify who I gracify, and I will mercify. It's like, what is that? To me, it has to be something about, you want to know me, then no chen and no rachamim.
The Jewish Rachmanus has that meaning.
Rachmanus, absolutely. Rachmanut is compassion. Rachmanis, 100%. So how many times did our grandparents use that, right? Have some Rachmanis on her, right? Because that is a quality that the Jewish people have always understood to be a value. We value that quality of Rachmanis. Okay, yes, he deserves for you to chew him out, right? But have some Rachmanis, because that's who you want to be, right? I just so remember that being a part of my childhood, Rachmanis. It's because it was understood that we wanted to cultivate being people who would have compassion, right? And not do what was necessarily earned, right? Yes.
And to a degree, we feel it for all children.
Yes.
And we see it
at our best.
Yes, and even the 11th plague saw it in Syria. So
it, I mean, at our best, we see it in all children, right? And in other human beings. Unfortunately, we seem to care more about some children than other children. Right. Because that's another part of what it means to be human, unfortunately. And the work, it seems, is to live into, if we're going to live into imitatio Dei, if we're going to imitate the divine, then we have to magnify
and extend
our rachamim and chen, and that's this other word here, grace. This is grace, chen. And that's a word that has been taken from us. And I would really love for us to work on reclaiming that word. Right? Grace is also about what's unearned. Right? That's a gift. And that grace, and we say it in the priestly benediction. Right? May, when we bless our young ones on Friday nights, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka, right? And may God have chen for you. And that is a standard understanding on our part of the divine response to the universe. And I feel like we need to take that word back. Yes.
I mean, up until now, we've said you were headed towards Rachmanis when the family has a relationship. But if the father has a stranger walk into his house who violates the law, there's no Rachmanis. He gets justice. But I don't think I'm right. Are you saying that Rachmanis needs to be enhanced for everybody?
Yes.
Well, how do you draw the line so the society doesn't fracture?
Well, you have to do it carefully. You have to do it carefully. And making laws is different, I think, from what my responsibility is as a human being to cultivate. Someone may still get jail time for breaking into my house. I don't have to hate them. Those are different things. Yes. That you still need a system of justice whereby somebody has consequences or else society crumbles. Right. But I can have Rachmanis on that person. I can say, they're poor, they're trying to provide for their own family, and they took from me to do that. They're still going to jail, and they need to go to jail. But I don't have to carry around hating them for the rest of my life either.
You don't have Rachmanis for either.
I don't need to.
Why not?
Well, because I'm not crazy.
But that's the point.
Okay, so of course there are lines. Of course. Charles Manson? No, I don't have any Rachmanis. But I have a degree of Rachmanis for people who are mentally ill. And that we live in a world where people's hardwiring goes crazy and or is twisted by what people do to them. And that I have a degree of Rachmanis about. That's as far as I'm willing to go.
I think it goes back to what you were saying about balancing the one and the other.
Right.
And that it's not all the one and
Correct.
It's not all the other, but that the Jewish tradition recognizes that they kind of are in
relationship,
conflict, but they're in relationship with each other. And there are times when the scale tips a little bit more to one side than the other, but we can't forget the one side and just, there's this thing about justice is blind. To Jews, justice is not blind. That's why we have judges and not computers. That's why we have human beings.
And that's the legal system also does that, and that's why there's the compulsory sentence is not that. That's the law. But when the sentences are given by judges, when it's not compulsory, we assume the judge takes into account the situation.
Right.
There's something about hating the behavior, but not the person.
So that's one tool to move towards rachamim, right? Towards compassion and empathy. That's a set of behaviors, but this is a human being, right? And differentiating between those is one path to cultivating compassion.
What is the definition of pain, grace?
I don't know.
I don't understand it.
Any help?
I think what we talk about, the unearned mercy.
So, anybody want to help translate grace?
Breathing while we sleep.
So the question was, could I translate chen, grace? Like, unpack that.
A state of grace is different from the general definition.
Right. I mean,
State of grace is more of a Christian.
I don't know how to translate grace. Does anybody have a better word? Grace feels really clear to me. Grace feels super clear to me.
I have no idea what grace means.
Right. So can you help me? What are some other words?
Complete.
No, it's
Being given.
it has to do with mercy too. It's what you get.
It's related. I think it's related to compassion and mercy.
Yes, but it's the feeling as a result of that.
This is on God's part. It's not a feeling.
Right.
It's a verb.
But I think in the Christian sense, it is a feeling.
I don't think so. God's grace is what is given.
Yes.
God gives God's grace. God gracifies.
So
It's a verb and it's a noun, and right here it's a verb. God is doing something, or not. I mean, it's an intransitive verb, right? It's
Kindness. No, it's acceptance.
Kind of relates to forgive.
In Christianity, I think it's definitely related to forgiveness, but not here.
Maybe there's not.
I mean, we get forgiven because God has chen and rachamim for sure. That's how we get forgiven. We don't earn forgiveness, right? Out of God's chen and rachamim, God forgives. But so
You get grace from God's mercy.
sort of. But here, mercy and grace are both
given.
used the same way about God doing them.
Maybe there's no word for that either.
Let's drop this.
Do we have any synonyms?
In Christianity,
I still don't understand it.
I mean,
It
when we
says in Christian belief, the free and unmerited favor of God as manifested in the salvation of sinners and the bestowal of blessings.
Okay, so if we take out the forgiveness of sinners, I mean, even though that works here in a certain context, it is about the unearned bestowing of goodness, of blessing, of favor, of
receiving. It's the giving, not the receiving.
Correct.
The big question to me is not what is grace, but what is our response.
So that's a conversation.
Is it a key word?
That's blessing.
Blessing.
Unearned is a really important part of this whole thing, I think.
Because it says one of the definitions, an unmerited divine assistance given humans for
So
their
is that sort of like
regeneration or
blessed?
sanctification.
I think it's related to blessing, to favor.
I'm very familiar with how chen is used in Yiddish, and it's totally different, but maybe there's something in it. And what it is a kind of winningness.
Winningness?
This child has such a winning way. Azoy chen. What does it call chen? That's how it's used.
So this is a child that evokes grace.
That evokes love and interest.
Yes, from people.
Yes.
This is a child that it is easy to feel chen for. It is easy to have chen for this child. Right. Is
Worthy of.
lovable. Is lovable. Is, right?
It
makes perfect sense to me, right? That this is a kid who's Rahmanadik.
But that's not earned.
Exactly where we started. I'm wondering why we're reading this on.
Okay. So let's go a little further because this is the end. This is it. Like we're not going past here. So we're almost at the end of our text, and then I know, but I let you today. I was completely aware the whole time. Often I'm not, but I was completely aware today that I allowed that.
You had Rahmanas.
I had Rahmanas because this is all the text we're doing, right? And so why not dig in as far as we want to, because we're not going past this. And it's important, I think, to understand this because it seems important to God to communicate this. So Moshe's asking, let me know you. And this is what God says. That's why I spend so much time on it. Because our tradition is suggesting that this is what's important to the divine. In God's self-description. This is God self-disclosing. That seems critically important to me. We don't get that a lot. God tells us what to do. We don't get a lot of God saying, this is who I am. We get things like Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh as an answer. I will be what I will be. Like, really, this is an answer. This is God, the character God, answering Moshe's question, answering Moshe's request. You want to know me? All right, it's something about Chen and something about Rachamim. And what else? Tov. I'm going to cause all my Tov to pass before you. Right? So it's about goodness. Okay? So those seem important.
And Tov is what God said in creating the world.
Absolutely. God sees the world and says Tov.
So why is this special for Passover?
We're going to get there. I'm telling you. We're going to get there. Hang with me. All right. Vayomer lo tuchal lirot. And God says, you cannot see me, my face, because a person cannot see me, vachai, and live. Vayomer Adonai, hine makom iti. And God says to Moshe, here's a makom, here's a place, iti, with me. V'nitzavta al hatzul. This nitzav, remember, we've had this word before. Erectify yourself, to really stand firm. Atem nitzavim kulchem hayom. All y'all stand here today, right? It's about really standing. So God says, I want you to come stand and be here, al hatzur, on the rock. V'haya ba'avor kavodi, and it will be that when my kavod passes, v'samticha, and I will put you b'nikrat hatzur, in a crag, in the rock, v'sakoti kapi alecha, and I will protect you with my, what is this called? Palm. With my palm on you. Ad ovri, until I have passed. Right? Bahasiroti et kapi, and I will take away my hand. Vira'ita et achorai, and you will see my.
What's behind me?
Huh?
What's behind me?
Good. So, good. You're going to see achorai. I'm not going to translate it yet. Ufanai lo yera'u. But my face, y'all can't see. All right.
I can see evidence.
Aha. So what did you just say, Rita?
You will see what's behind me, like my back.
Because achar has many meanings. Achar usually means after. So you will see achorai. You will see my afterwards. My aftermath. I like to use the term wake. Right? How do you know a boat's just come through? So I imagine, I watch and read a lot of science fiction, so you will see the disturbance in the field, right? You'll see my wake.
like the
my after.
Like the wind.
Like the wind. That's how you know air is moving, is it right? We experience it as wind.
So, it's like footprints in the sand.
Or footprints in the sand. Somebody was there. Somebody walked there. A shadow. All of these things are ways at hinting at this word achar. I don't like back because it's too anthropomorphic.
Yes, it's too physical.
And it's way too physical. I don't think it gets nearly at the Hebrew. And I'm not saying it's totally wrong, but it does not come close to, I think, the Hebrew's trying to describe what you can't describe. This is way too anthropomorphic.
It's an intonation, not a physical.
And yes, of course, it's my face you can't see, but you can see my achar. But I don't think, and so I can understand how you might say you can't see my face, but you can see my back. Okay, I get it. But I think the Hebrew is doing something much subtler in saying you can't see my face directly and live. It doesn't say you can't see my face, does it? It says a person can't see my face, v'chai, and live. But you can see my achar.
But what is passing by is kavod.
God's kavod.
Kavod. It's not a physical thing.
Correct. Which is why I don't like back.
That's it.
Right? Because God's going to cause God's tov to pass by. God's kavod is going to pass. Kavod doesn't have a back. Like, right? Have you seen those translations where it says, you will see the back of my neck? It's like, what? Like,
it would almost be comforting to say you will not see my face and live, because the comfort in that you will be joining God when you die and seeing Him.
Say that one more time.
When you say you cannot see my face and live, maybe it's not a negative thing, because you will be joining God and being with Him and seeing Him when you die.
Okay, so stop even, if we don't even use the word negative and positive, now tell me what you were saying. Because you're trying to convince me this isn't a bad thing. I never said this was a bad thing.
Oh, okay, no.
Or a negative thing.
I'm just seeing that it isn't necessary. I personally am
It's not a bad thing. Now tell me what you were saying. You're unpacking this.
That perhaps there is an afterlife, or perhaps there is some way that you join with God when you die, that you will perhaps see Him.
You can't see me and stay alive the way you are now. If you see my face, you will no longer be high.
But you will be in another realm, perhaps.
So I believe that's what this means. I believe that's what this means. Not about death. I don't think this is about death. It might be. But I think what it's saying is, you cannot handle me. You can't handle taking me on face to face. It will destroy you as high. Now, maybe you become, what do you call it? When you achieve
grace.
Maybe you transcend. Like, what happens when people become completely enlightened?
A nirvana?
They reach samadhi.
So whatever that word is that I can't find in the vocabulary in my brain, that's maybe what happens, but that's not high, right? That's not a normal life.
It's beyond human.
It's beyond high. It's beyond life as we know it, and that's not the goal. That's why this is not negative. It's not the goal for you to see me face to face and change. It's your job to high. Now what happens after that? Who knows, right? But your job is to high. Your job is to live, not to seek nirvana. That's not for you as a human being. You're supposed to live. That means you can experience my achar, right? And it doesn't mean I'm not in relationship to you. It means I love you. And I'm going to protect your high. I'm going to protect your life. Because you have work to do, right? Moses has a job to do. And yes, maybe God wants to be with Moses. And we know that Moses dies with the kiss of God. So yes, maybe the most intimate thing in the world that could happen to Moshe would be to experience God face to face. But God is saying, then you can't high. I love you. I imagine with all this chen and rachamim going on, God is saying, I love you. So I'm going to protect you from me. I'm going to protect you from the full experience of me because you can't stand that and be a normal human being.
You must live.
You must live. And this is a very Jewish text to me. We are not looking for union with the divine. We are looking to be close to God and in relationship to God. We are not looking to unify with God. We are not looking to transcend our human experience. That is a very Jewish text to me.
So we're looking to experience God
Yes.
in this life.
Yes.
We know
Yes.
when we see the aftermath and we see the experiences of God. We see,
and when we experience chen
And do the work.
and rachamim,
Right.
and we must always be looking for achar. We must always be looking for where was God in this. But we are not looking to transcend this. That is not Jewish.
We're looking to walk in God's ways.
We are looking
not
to
be
walk in
bound.
God's ways in this world, in this life, in this body. Not to see God face to face and become one, or whatever happens when that happens, right? That might be lovely. And hopefully there is something like that happens after this life. But as Jews, our job is to live this life in light of the fact that we are given chen and rachamim by a loving, just, compassionate God. And what does that call forth from us? Which is what Bert was saying earlier. What does that call? What does that mean for how I live this life? It changes how I live this life if I believe I have been given chen and rachamim by a source that could snuff me out like that. Right? It humbles one.
It also gives you a mission.
Gives you a mission, makes us hopeful, makes us active,
Thankful, hopefully.
thankful, hopefully, grateful.
It's what blessings are about.
Changes everything if I understand myself as being the recipient of chen and rachamim from a force that created the entire universe and could wipe it out in a second.
This is not a Buddhist thought. This is
No, absolutely not. I think lahavdil. It is the exact opposite of the impulses of many traditions. And I'm not saying the impulse isn't here. It is. The impulse has always been there for human beings to want the divisions to fall away and for us to experience mystical union. I know that, and I'm not denying that. Normative Judaism says you can have moments of that and moments of experiencing that kind of thing, but that's not the goal, right? We don't have monasteries. Why don't we have monasteries? Because the goal is not to go sit somewhere and pray all day and experience it. Which, don't get me started on cheder and those who are studying Torah all day long and not doing anything out in the world. I think that's exactly the opposite of what normative Judaism has always said, right? Is that we don't have monasteries because you're being close to God and grooving on that 24/7 doesn't do anything in the world. It doesn't contribute to your life being a full life. It doesn't mean we shouldn't pray. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be constantly seeking an experience of contact and closeness with the divine. But it means so that we can live.
Wasn't there one sect of asceticism that was wiped out finally? Or maybe not?
Say that again.
There was a sect of asceticism which was looked down upon and still is.
You mean Jewish asceticism?
Yes, Jewish asceticism.
Yes, always there's that impulse. Always. Always.
There's a name for the sect and I don't remember what
So there's always that. And that's what's happening, right, for all the people sitting in yeshiva all day long.
I went through that.
And so the trick is where's the balance between wanting to spend one's life pursuing spiritual experiences? Where's the balance between that and living a life that we feel is contributing, right, to a better world, to a better society. And that's a tricky balance, and we don't always get it right.
But we know we have it in this life, and that's what we know as Jews. Whereas other religions might say, well, everything you do is for the afterlife. All we know is that we have this life as we are, as God said, in the way you are, to carry God, to experience God.
Yes. 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 We have hope and faith and trust and all that. That's something else. But we don't focus on it unless and until things get really bad.
We have to do well in this life.
Exactly.
This is the one we know.
And when things are terrible in this life, we see a lot of Jewish writings on the afterlife. Just like every other religion. Christianity focuses on the afterlife. Why? Because it was such crap for them. Yeah. Right? And it was a religion of peasants whose lives were horrible. So every time reality here is terrible, writings get more popular about Olam Haba, the world to come, right? And our reward will be in the world to come. So it's there, and the impulse is there, but I think the corrective is here, and has always been here, and saves us in many ways, and makes us who we are. It makes us, look, we're 0.2% of the world's population, people. 0.2%. We're not even 1%. 0.2% of the world's population, and look what we've contributed to the world. Why do you think that is? I believe it's because of this.
We take life seriously.
We take this life very seriously, and that we are to bring the divine into this world, into this life. It's not separate. And if there's an Olam Haba, terrific. If there's a world to come, that's great. The rabbis say, if you live a good life here, you don't need to worry about Olam Haba. Quit. Don't focus on it. There's nothing you can do. Just live a good life. Olam Haba will take care of itself. Right? You can't get dressed once you're in front of the queen. That's what the rabbis say. You have to prepare yourself in the antechamber. Right? Fix your hair and your makeup before you're presented before the throne. Right? And so don't worry about it. When it's time to see the king, right? If you've done everything you're supposed to do, you're ready. Okay. Enough. Right? And so now go make your Shabbos dinner, and go raise your children with Rahmanis and Chain, and right, and treat other people that way, and create a society that's reflective of that. All right, we're finally going to get to somebody's question. Rabbi Rami Shapiro dropped to the final paragraph on the first page. Now the obvious question is, yes, you see it?
Yep.
Now the obvious question is, what does this verse and the whole story of Moshe's desire for a revelation of God's presence have to do with Pesach? See, trust me, I will always get there.
You promised.
I promised. On the most basic level, this story is a lead up to some verses which speak of the festival of Matzot. But there must be more going on. Taking a step back, this whole section of the Torah is about rejecting idolatry. From the story of the golden calf through the commandments Moshe receives after the revelation of God's attributes. In a sense, Moshe wants the same thing that the Israelites wanted when they built their golden calf in chapter 32. He wants a visible, palpable sense of God's presence, a concrete image he could comprehend and carry with me. No go, says God. You will only know me, or you will know me only by apprehending my merciful attributes and qualities, not by seeing me directly. Not only that, but God warns Moshe sternly about following the religious practices of the neighboring tribes, and then tells Moshe and the Israelites that they must celebrate the holidays, the first being the festival of Matzot. So one of the first things that people are going to have to do is now enter into a different relationship to time. Right? Now they're going to have Hamoed. They're going to have special times. Okay? What is the first special time, Hamoed, they're going to have? Pesach. Remember? Pesach was the beginning of the year. And it's certainly the first holiday that happens after they leave Egypt. To me, the idea of idolatry, says Rabbi Rami Shapiro, is not so much about bowing down before an image, but about arrogance, of thinking that one knows it all, of thinking there's nothing higher or beyond our own ideas and conceptions and creations. Pesach is a direct antidote to arrogance. We scrub our houses for Hamoed, which is often understood to represent puffed up pride and self-centeredness, and we know we'll never get it all. The laws and customs of Pesach are rich and complex, and there's something new to learn every year. Every Seder can be a different experience with new conversations, new questions, new insights. Conversely, we can make the holiday itself an idol by thinking we know it all. Been there, done that. Somebody who doesn't learn something new every year at Pesach, or who thinks they've done the holiday in an absolutely perfect way, isn't getting the message at all. Right? So Rami's saying, I see the story of Moshe and the second tablets as a lovely metaphor for the attitude of humility and openness that is the opposite of the idolatry we've been talking about. Moshe's told, you do your part by carving the tablets, put some effort into preparing a space, and God will enter that space. God doesn't hand it to us, carved in stone, as it were. And neither are we to write our own law, but something in the middle, with God and humans meeting and reaching for each other. Pesach, like the second tablets, takes some effort. The reward is learning God's ways in new and ever deeper ways if we are truly open.
Amen.
So this idea that Pesach is about, that Moshe wants the same thing the people wanted.
Right.
It's no different, right? They wanted it, and so they made a calf. Moshe wants the same thing. Show me. I need to see something. And God says, it's the wrong question. What do I look like? Show me. It's the wrong request. You want to know me? No chen. No rachamim. No tov. You're asking, your paradigm is completely wrong, because the impulse, right, is show me so I can see, and there's an arrogance in that, I think is what Rami is hinting at. That when we can be humble enough to say, it's so much bigger than I can possibly understand or withstand or see, it's so much bigger than that. That's when we get it. That's when we're open. That's when we apprehend. That's when we get it. That's when we know God.
You've been listening to Rabbi Amy Bernstein's Friday morning Torah study from Kehillat Israel in Pacific Palisades, California. For more information, go to our website, www.ourki.org.